The final crucial point about Norway's system is that they've not yet abandoned quotas. How will the post-quota world develop? What will it look like? How will equality of opportunity be affected in the long term? All we can do for now is speculate. But if blindly imposing diversity quotas is not the ideal solution, what can we do? How can we ensure the sun's rays shine on all? Well, action needs to be taken from two sides, a demand side and a supply side, to increase the demand of women and minorities, but equally to ensure that the talent pool is sufficiently deep. Now, on the supply side, both corporations and the government have a role to play. Corporations through board internships, mentoring programs, flexible working hours, and firms such as BT and Ford have already started to do so. And on the government side, through investment in social infrastructure, city academies, increased childcare support. But it's absolutely true that that talent has to be embraced. Cultures have to change. Now, Lord Davies has made an excellent start. Many of his proposals are commendable and should be followed through. Greater diversity, more diversity policies, increased transparency as to selection criteria, regular reporting, targets. But he missed something. Something that's been creating a revolution in the American National Football League's recruitment strategies. Something that in the past 10 years has seen black or African American head coaches quadruple. 7 of the last 10 teams to make it to the Super Bowl finals led or coached by an African American. And for the first time in its history, an African American head coach winning the Super Bowl. What happened? The Rooney Rule. A rule which requires teams to interview at least one minority candidate before selecting their new head coach. No quotas, no obligation to hire, just one interview. Now, it's high time that such a rule was introduced to the boardroom. As I explained earlier, only 4% of directors, according to that UK survey, actually had an interview. What boards should be required to do is to ask their nominating committees to interview a diverse slate of candidates, including ideally at least one woman and one ethnic minority. It's not a sanction-led approach. It has to be voluntary, it has to be business-led, but it can be regulated. No outcome is prescribed, no opportunities are blocked for individuals from well-represented groups. And the advantages of such a rule would be clear. For candidates, the opportunity to display their talent, the experience of having been through a formal interview process, and exposure. After all, directors often sit on more than one board.
Imran, is that really ambitious enough? If you have 10 candidates for a board position and you're commending us to think that we should have one woman and one BME candidate, so they've got a 1 in 10 chance of success and they only represent 10% each of their particular diverse groups, when actually what we want to achieve is 30%.
There's a difference between what we want and what's achievable. There's absolutely no bar on companies interviewing more than one female candidate or ethnic minority candidate. And it's hoped that over time they'll realise, their eyes will be opened and they'll start to interview more. But for the start, all we can really prescribe or ask is that they interview one. In fact, in the NFL, they started with African Americans. Now it's ethnic minorities and assistant coaches. And commentators and lawyers are asking for it to be applied across all American sports in their recruitment of coaches. The FA last year, Gordon Taylor, the players' chairman, specifically called for the Rooney Rule to be introduced into the national football in the UK. So we have to start small, because that's as much as we can hope. But what we can hope for is a ball rolling, and that's as much as we can hope for.
It sounds from the cadence of your voice that you're about to move on to another topic. Is that right? Because if you are, I want to ask you something. But if you're not, I'll wait until you are.
Well, I'm happy to take questions.
All right. Will you define for me how you see elitism?
In the sense of a definition?
Yeah. If I said to you, elitism means what? What would you say?
I would say a system whereby a small minority of people have greater access to whatever it might be than others. And they have it not necessarily on the basis of merit. They are entitled to certain things because they are elites, because they are an exclusive club or group.
So elitism for you excludes pure merit. It might include it, but it needn't.
I think achieving a genuine meritocracy is an ideal. And we can take measures to try to ensure that we have greater meritocracy. But the problem is that it has to be bottom up. It has to be with people understanding why it's important and devising for themselves, for organisations based on their own needs and preferences, how they're going to do that. Their eyes have to be opened first.
Can I ask why? I mean, smoking ban, minimum wage, votes for women. Sometimes government just does things and then it works. Why is this different?
It's different because it's a fundamental principle of how companies operate, that they should be allowed to act in their own best interests.
That's not quite right, though, is it? Because companies are highly regulated creatures. We're not talking about sole traders here. We're talking about companies that ask for certain benefits from the status, and there's quite a lot of regulation of companies, and directors get disqualified and they have to file their accounts, and there's a lot of regulation.
You may be too young to remember this, but my first job in a shoe shop, I was paid £3 an hour. That was legal then. It's not legal now. It's direct change. Used to be allowed to do it, now I'm not allowed to. Now you cannot do that. Why is this different?
Well, absolutely. There is significant regulation on companies, but not on recruitment and promotion.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. It's called the Equality Act.
Race Relations Act.
Sorry, I'll clarify. What I mean is, positive discrimination has never been legitimate at the point of recruitment and promotion. The furthest we've ever got is Section 159 of the Equality Act 2010, which says that at the point of recruitment or promotion.
But you're describing the law as it is, as the definition of what is legitimate, when we're having a debate about what the law should be.
Absolutely, but the rules as they are supportable and have great merit.
Because?
Because it's, at the end of the day, people should get the job on merit. And if they can't, then we have to ensure that we take action to try to change that. But radical legislative intervention does not necessarily ensure perfect distillation. By putting in quotas, it's not necessarily a panacea that everything is resolved. It's far more complex than that, and we have to do it justice. That's what I'm saying. Would you like me to continue the point about Section 159?
I think you can continue.
Okay.
Thanks.
In conclusion, genuine equality of opportunity can only be achieved when underrepresented candidates get the job on merit. But to get there, we must step away from the sharp winds of quotas to embrace the warmth of understanding, to step back from big red buttons and to think really hard about how we enlighten all sides to the great talent that's out there. A comprehensive approach focused on both demand-side and supply-side policies, supported by corporations and by government, has the power to ensure diversity is institutionally adopted, not simply imposed. Buttressed by a corporate rule which demonstrates to companies the error of their ways, to open their eyes to talent and not simply to try to impose it upon them. That's the best way of securing diversity's long-term advocates. Thank you for listening.